Speaking of coaches that are having a bit of a rough week, it is officially Jimbo Hate Week as the Sauron's flaming eye gaze that is the national football media and discourse has shifted from Brian Kelly and is now zeroed in on Jimbo Fisher. And it's not without merit. It's kind of crazy though, Aaron, because it's funny just how much football is like. There's so much build up to the game itself, and the result determines everything, right? And just one result can have such a massive impact. If I asked you last week, is Jimbo Fisher like a good coach? The majority of people would still said yes, absolutely, right? Still good coach, still very good developing offense, yada, yada, yada. If I asked you today, it feels like a majority of people are going to say, no, he sucks. He's tired. His offense is old. He's had no success recently. And that's a wild swing, but it shows you two things. First, it shows you how awful the loss was to App State. And we can get into that because it was awful. You got your ass kicked up and down the field. And it also shows you that, you know what? Some of it is true, dude. I think I might be getting sucked into the mind hive a bit, but like, wait until I go through this quarterback list. It's hard to argue that Jimbo Fisher is still, or that we should view Jimbo Fisher as being more of a like maybe like a Kirby Smart or Ryan Day or Lincoln Riley, and maybe we start viewing him more like a Mac Brown, like a solid coach that is just beyond his time. Where do you stand on Jimbo?
I still think Jimbo's a great coach. Is he a top 5, 6, 7 coach in America? Like a lot of people have had him for the past couple of years. You know, that's something that needs to go for consideration. We have to move him back a little bit. The one thing at Texas A&M, which he didn't have at FSU, is he has all the resources. He has everything he wanted. I mean, that's the reason why he left Florida State. They just were not willing to supply him with what he felt like was needed in order to be a consistent champion there at Florida State. He comes A&M, the best facilities. They're flooding money into to not only him, but his staff, into developing the program. We've seen the recruiting class. It's not just this year's recruiting class. I know a lot of people focus on this incredible class that's freshmen this year, but he's recruited at a high level now for the past couple of years. They are always a top 5, top 10 team. So if you're looking at the amount of talent on the roster, and we're just basing it on these recruiting rankings and the 4 stars and the 5 stars, and I think that's all a bunch of BS, but you get enough of them, enough will hit and enough will be good for your program.
Yes.
All you need is good coaching, and they've been average. They had the 9-1 season there during COVID. They got completely waxed by Alabama. So, I mean, how good were they really? But other than that, it's just been a team that we all hype up to start the season. Then they just disappoint and disappoint and disappoint. We always keep saying next year. I mean, I got into it too. I mean, before the season started, they're one of my teams that I thought was way overhyped. But what did I say? Hey, they're not going to be that good this year, but wait till next year. Wait till 2023. Wait till 2024. And I feel like we've been saying that every year for the past 4 years, 3 to 4 years with Jimbo and the Aggies. So at what point do the fans say enough's enough? It obviously isn't the talent. Something's going wrong here. Something is going on, especially with the offense, which is just, to me, that's why you hire him. If you're going to go out there and hire a coach nowadays, they're most likely going to be an offensive-minded football coach, and the offense has been stagnant. You haven't really seen – I'm excited to see your list you got, but you haven't seen consistency at the receiving position either. You haven't seen top-tier receivers coming out of A&M year after year after year after year, moving on to the NFL. So not only have you struggled at the quarterback spot, you've also struggled at the receiving position also. So that doesn't help going forward, bringing in top-tier talent at those spots, especially when you look at the way the offenses are kind of running the show nowadays in college. But going back to your original point, I still think he's a good coach. I think that he has a chance to make this team good. And I think I brought this up on this show on Saturday. I just think expectations are out of control. Like, when did we all of a sudden think that A&M should be deserving of the national spotlight that we've put on them? And maybe it's because of the money, maybe because it's bringing in Jimbo. But like, when's the last time A&M was a legitimate national championship contender? Like, I don't remember that ever happening.
So that's where, so that's simply where I say I understand it because of a few things. First off, we can't ignore the 9-1 season. Like, whatever, like Mickey Mouse elements there were to of the pandemic, it was a bunch of oddness. Like, they were 9-1. They won the Orange Bowl, I think, that year. Like, that's a really, really good recent result when you combine that with the investment, right? Building $242 million worth of new facilities, the giant Jimbo contract. And then you combine the number one recruiting class hype. Like there's a ton of, and really being in the top 5 recruiting, like you said, for the last few years. So there's a ton of elements there that do make sense to me in the forming them a contender. And it's Jimbo's resume, having a national championship, being viewed as a quarterback whisperer. The problem is those last 2 things, Aaron, I just don't know if they're true anymore. Bora in the chat says, anyone else thinks there's something fundamentally wrong with Jimbo's coaching? Andrew Gilmore says, Jimbo's offense is way too complicated. He needs to be a CEO, outsource play calling. That's actually a great idea, I think, kind of potentially to explore if I am Jimbo, because you do seem very good at the running the program part of it. What seems to be struggling is your actual offense, your actual offensive scheming. And you hit it, Aaron. It's a red flag when you're no longer good at your strength. If you're an OC, as your history, right, you should always be good on offense. If you're a DC, same thing. He came up as the quarterback whisperer, dude. Think about the run that he had. Jamarcus Russell, EJ Manuel, Christian Ponder, Jameis Winston, all first-round NFL draft picks. And some that didn't even go on to do good in the NFL, which credit to him. That means he had them playing at an incredibly high level. So he goes from those guys, 4 first-round draft picks, 2 number 1 overall picks. Since Jameis Winston, these are guys who started games for him. Everett Golson, Sean McGuire, DeAndre Francois, James Blackman, Kellen Mond, Zach Calzada, and Haynes King. I mean, bruh, that is as stark of a drop-off as I have ever seen when you are talking about the productivity of a position group. And even someone like Kellen Mond had his moments, right? Certainly, absolutely. Yeah. But he was never dominant. He was never viewed as a first-round pick. Somewhere along the line, it is, and I know this is all coming to a head today, so maybe I'm being a bit reactive, Aaron, but it does feel like he lost that magic. Like, I want to propose snaps officially removing the title of quarterback whisperer from Jimbo. I will never refer to him as such again on this program, which I know I have done, because I think the evidence is damning here.
I'm with you. I listen, you have to go by what you've done recently in my mind. And obviously in recent history, it has not been super successful. I think one thing that always has somewhat bothered me is just the fundamentals and how he teaches the quarterback position of just the throwing mechanics. And I want people to think about and go watch film of Aaron Rodgers back at Cal. And for those who are watching on YouTube, I'll give a little demonstration. The ball is up here by his ear. I mean, it literally is up here by his ear. You look stiff, you don't look fluid, and you could tell by the play, and then you could tell by the play of these A&M quarterbacks. It just, even Kellen Mond, for such a great athlete, he looks stiff as hell in the pocket. Well, it's because the ball's by his ear. As soon as Aaron Rodgers got to the NFL, what do you see him do? He dropped it by, they say, put it right by the right titty. Put it right by the right titty. That way you can move in the pocket. You could be fluid. And it's called a rotator cuff T-Bob for a reason. So your rotator cuff, your shoulder right here, it rotates. Rotator cuff rotates. If your ball's up here by your ear, that's called a shot put. You see, I can't rotate because it's just a shot
makes sense. That's a great job of explaining that.
T-Bob, look. If it's by my boobie, my arm can rotate.
Oh,
my damn headset. Rotate, rotator cuff. So I just don't get. Go look at it. I mean, go look at the footage and the film and the pictures of all of his quarterbacks. Ball's here. It looks like elementary stuff. So that's my biggest issue with him.
There's a meme picture today, or a picture that is being memed right now, of Haynes King, and it's exactly what you're talking about. His hands are up above his head. He's kind of like stretched out, like he's about to kind of like pounce on someone with like an over-the-top hug or something. Yeah. It's it's odd, man. Again, you know, it's our brains take a lot of time to change, right? Like in my mind, Seattle Seahawks still have the Legion of Boom defense. And I know that isn't true, but it's just what happened. So like Jimbo has continued to kind of skate by on what he did in the past. I think it's time to just acknowledge it is what it is. And you know what stings extra badly today? If you're a Texas A&M fan, it's just some hardcore objective numbers. And that is the fact that not only did you just lose to App State, I'm trying to clown them during your yell practice, was so damn weird. You lose to App State, and that makes Jimbo's record through 50 games 35-15, whereas Kevin Sumlin was 36-14. Literally pushes you one game under Sumlin. Sumlin had 9 ranked wins.
Wow.
Jimbo has 7. Sumlin had 5 road ranked wins. Jimbo has 0. The one thing Jimbo has, Sumlin didn't, a group of 5 loss. Oh, absolutely brutal day to be an Aggie, as you have to wake up and realize that you've been sold a bill of goods for the last half decade. And make no mistake, am I
it's okay.
laying on
Next
thick?
year.
Yes, I'm loving this.
Next year.
Yes, next year. Hey
Hey
man, look, they're
next
still
year.
married. Now,
Next
if anyone could do a Jimbo buyout, it is Texas A&M, right? I mean, they have all the money in the world. We all know this, but I don't think they're going to. They're going to let him, I think, get this #1 recruiting class of all time a couple years in and see what happens to him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. It should end up being good, but I don't know if you can sit here with any real faith in Jimbo Fisher anymore. At least not
Well, they
today.
better win this weekend. They better win this weekend. I mean, you pull up their schedule right now, and I'm not sold on Miami. I think Miami, just like them, they're actually pretty damn overrated. I think they have a chance to beat Miami this weekend. I like Arkansas. I love this Arkansas football team. I love Mississippi State. They go Arkansas. I mean, it's a bitch of a schedule. Arkansas at Mississippi State, at Alabama, at South Carolina. South Carolina just lost 2 of their top defenders to tearing ACLs. They got some issues on their own, but it's on the road. Versus Ole Miss, versus Florida, at Auburn, and then, versus LSU to finish the year off. I mean, I'm looking at a team right now, 7-5. 7-5.
Dude, do you know what? Yeah, no. I mean, it absolutely feels that way, Aaron. No, we'll see. We don't be too reactive here, but who knows? Maybe if they make a change to Max Johnson, like I don't know. I don't think shit happens, because otherwise, why isn't he playing? But I mean,
no,
this weekend,
this had to be the last straw. I think you either start Max this week versus Miami and just see, because there's such an issue with throwing the football, and you can say schemes, and you can say that Jimbo has lost his touch calling plays, but I watched the film this morning, and there's guys that are open, and Haynes is late. Haynes is not anticipating. He likes to see the receivers open instead of just letting it rip. And once again, he's just not a good thrower of the football. I illustrated that last week, and I've just shown you why, some of the mechanical issues of why he's not as fluid as he should be. You got to give Max an opportunity. So whether it's hey, you're getting the start, you're getting the nod versus Miami, or you're going to get X amount of series. Because I think at some point Max Johnson has to be on the field for this game. The question needs to be answered. Who is the better quarterback? And until you put Max in, if you're telling me Haynes is the best answer and Max is that much worse, then you deserve to be 7-5.
Well, if you're telling me that, then not only are you not the quarterback whisperer, you're the quarterback shitter. You're making guys worse, because I've seen Max Johnson play better than what you're getting out of Haynes King. Like, I've seen it firsthand. You know what we should call this weekend, Aaron? The Fraud Bowl. Because Jimbo may be a fraud and Mario Cristobal may be a fraud. I'm not entirely sure here. We got to give Cristobal a little time.
Though. Yeah.
No, I know, but I'm just talking about his overall record. And I know it's tainted. It is tainted by an awful, first few years where he gets a FIU job at a very young age. So I'm not, but right now, 64-60 overall in his career. A couple nice years at Oregon, but can never quite get them where they wanted to be. So we'll see what Cristobal does in Miami. But you know what? The winner of the Fraud Bowl is going to do themselves a lot of they're going to give themselves a lot of credit or a lot of help in kind of making these news cycles calm down. All right, let's see. T-Pat says Lil Nicky is grinning and waiting to pounce on that #1 class, Nick Saban #1 transfer class next year. Well, that's the thing. If this does go off the rails and this spirals and the Jimbo noise gets so loud and they do go like 7-5, Aaron, the vultures will be circling. Like, make no mistake. Like a dead and rotting carcass. What's the worst they could do with?
What's the number that the discussion really gets hot of moving on from? Is it 6-6? Like, if they're a 6-6 football team, Is it, or is it like,
I
does it matter? Like,
I still
there's
think
no
he is
chance that Jimbo is going to
relatively.
get canned.
I think I'm in that boat.
There
I think
has to
there's
be a
no chance that he
number.
gets fired. I think that though, if you get to 7-5, 6-6, then next year becomes that year where A&M will say, F it, we're fed up. In terms of economies of scale, them paying out Jimbo with like 5 years remaining is probably basically the same thing as what Nebraska just did, firing Scott Frost 19 days early. So I think they want to let him develop this class. I'm not 100% on that because like if you fire him, then aren't you worried about that class dissolving? Like, yes, I get it. They already might end up being a bit of a dead gazelle on the side of the road, but you might as well like chum the waters and throw that meat out to the birds yourself if you fire Jimbo. So we gonna see.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, you want to talk about owning the state of Texas. We know the state of Texas is flooded with talent when it comes to high school recruiting, and all the positive, even with the both teams lost, but obviously the loss to Alabama and the way it happened for the Longhorns was a lot better than losing to a Group of 5 team for the Aggies. And right now, there's a lot more, I would say, momentum for Texas. They're coming to the SEC. They got a quarterback with an incredible last name of Manning that is going to help them recruit and most likely have a chance to have a better class than A&M. Like, to me right now, if I'm just a fan of college football in the state of Texas and I'm evaluating both programs, you got one coach who's been getting paid $1 bajillion that's been given everything to have success. And then you're talking about Steve Sarkisian, who is still relatively new, second-year head coach at Texas. And I would say right now, I would hedge my bet on Texas being the better football team in the next couple of years, based on what I've seen from this weekend. It just seems like Jimbo has not been able to get through that ceiling, and Sark is, maybe they teased us. Maybe Texas isn't as good, and maybe it was a one-hit wonder kind of game this weekend. But I'm just saying right now the pulse in that state is, A&M's kind of losing favor, and the Longhorns are kind of going the opposite direction.
You know what the pulse in that state is, Aaron? Dead. Baylor lost. Texas lost. Texas A&M lost. Houston lost. Cowboys lost. And Dak Prescott's out 6 to 8 weeks. It is a shit day in the Lone Star State if you love football. Also, Texas fans, y'all are all over me about me saying Bama's going to whoop that ass. Is there any greater commentary in how sorry the state of your program is that you're celebrating losing? You nearly have just as many 5 stars. You have just as many 4 stars on your roster. Like, you should be competing, okay? Congrats for finally doing what you should have been doing for the past 10 years. Do it for 2 weekends in a row. How about that, Texas? Get the hell out of here. Freaking hate the whole state.